Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bayles.
When you look at our mob, everyone thought we were just going to die out, but we haven't.
Probably the most adaptable people on the planet.
It's this emergence of this humanality again that I find so enriching.
Be wise, be wise, be wise. Look at ways to cost save so that at the end of the day, your door's still open.
So welcome to Black Magic Woman podcast. And before we start, I'd like to begin, as usual, by following proper protocol and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're gathering on today. I'm on Gubbi Gubbi country here on the Sunshine Coast. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners from wherever this podcast has been listened to. So thank you very much for joining us today. I've actually got a guest on the line, Leroy Wilkinson. How are you, my brother?
Hello.
I guess I'm going to hand over to you now to tell us, who you are and who your mob is.
So my name is Leroy Wilkinson, proud Worimi Ngarrindjeri man. Coming to you today from the land of the Awabakal people here in Newcastle, New South Wales.
Too deadly. So, brother, what's going on in your world?
What's going on in my world? Look, it's all action stations at the moment, trying to, wade through the anxiety and the tensions in my body over this COVID-19 outbreak. And, as you know, Mara, I'm fresh into business, 7 months in now, and typical Leroy's luck, 7 months in there's a global pandemic, right?
Yeah. And that's why I thought it'd be deadly yarning with you today, because at the end of the day, look, there's a lot of COVID-19 stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought, fair enough, most people I'm going to yarn to over the coming days and coming weeks are going to talk about COVID-19, but it'd be good to hear from Aboriginal businesses like yours. So you're fresh into business, 7 months into business. So what's your business called?
So our business is called Dhiira, which is spelled DHIIRA.com.au. Jump on, check it out. So my business is, look, it's basically been born out of necessity. I'm trying to reframe and, absolutely shutter human resources inside businesses to make sure that human resources is a human type of business. I've found that human resources is policy procedure, it's control methodology that doesn't suit blackfellas firstly. So essentially what I'm trying to do is to humanise business through HR by using a First Nations lens, which then opens the doors for them to work on how they do that for, other minority groups, if it's religious backgrounds, different ethnicities, different cultural backgrounds. How do you really get to know the human that you're employing and make the employment conditions work around them so you can get the best result and everyone can be happy? That's the goal, right? Happiness.
Oh, I love it. And, I guess that's why you and I connected, because with Black Card, which is my core business, we deliver cultural capability training.
Yeah.
And we're using Aboriginal Terms of Reference, which is our knowledge, to be able to educate, mainstream Australians and the non-Aboriginal populations here in this country and even globally, right?
Yeah.
How did we build relationships, right?
Yeah.
How did we engage with each other? We got all these different countries that people spoke different languages and they had different ways of doing their business. They had different laws, different dreaming stories, right. Different foundational beginnings. So, I love the fact with Black Card that we're utilising tens of thousands of years of knowledge to be able to strengthen ethical behaviour.
Yeah.
So that people can be their best selves, right? But guided by our knowledge, especially in this land, now known as Australia.
Yeah.
And to have a business like yours, come out of the woodworks, you've just kind of arrived. You've been in this game for a while, though, haven't you?
Yeah. So I spent 7 years at the Commonwealth Bank. I was a AES trainee there and had another 5-year career, and then jumped ship to go work at the Aboriginal Employment Strategy and finished up there late last year as the head of people and culture. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's kind of where I've seen it, right? So I've seen the stark differences between how corporates manage HR, and then as a HR lead inside an Aboriginal business, in a black business, there was hardly any similarities, because the way we naturally actioned and the way we naturally lived as an Aboriginal business working with blackfellas was human first.
Exactly.
You know, if it come down to performance management or disciplinary conversations, it was almost like a matter of, I care about you and I don't want to see you fail, you know, so talk to me, let's get through this together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you see in you know, corporate mainstream type businesses that it's, you know, first warning, second warning, and then see you later.
Well, that investment on, or the focus on relationships is...
That's right.
I'm not going to say it's not there.
That it's not systematic.
Well, it's not their
so
core.
Intrinsic.
Yeah. So in terms of, brother, I didn't know you worked at Commonwealth Bank, and I did know I did know that you're at AES because I used to work at AES, so I see we had a few commonalities there. But tell me, you know, with your work at Commonwealth Bank, you started off.
Yeah.
So would you say your career started basically with that opportunity as a school-based trainee through CommBank?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, and I think that's why I ended up working at the AES, right? So, you know, take Leroy, 15-year-old kid, going to this meeting in a room at Cardiff High School, and Tony Johnson was her name, Bopper. She came in and said, you know, who wants a job or traineeship here at the bank? You know, and I always tell the yard, no kid ever says, I want to be a bank teller when they grow up. It's always an astronaut, a vet or something. You know, but I just said, well, I make money. And they said, yep. And I said, let's go. I'll apply. Because I wanted independence, right?
Of course, my brother.
You know, and then I went for this interview and, you know, they asked me about me and about, you know, my role models and yada, yada, and landed the gig. So I guess that's kind of why I went to work at the AES 7 years later, was my version of now giving back, you know, that reciprocity type thing. You know, how do I give this opportunity that I had to more kids? Because, you know, I'm still ADHD, you know, and you spend enough time with me now to know how ADHD I can be. But, you know, for me, I mean, I wasn't a good kid. School wasn't, you know, the best place for me, but then this gave me something else to focus on. So would I have even completed my HSC? Would I have had a job to straight out? You know, could I have moved out of home at 18 and, you know, bought my first car at 18? Could I have had this independent lifestyle that I've built without that day that, you know, AES came to my school? I don't know.
Exactly.
You know?
That is absolutely, you know, for me, inspirational, because I could tell you now, as a lot of our mob out there, you know, especially now that are looking for opportunities, that are unemployed now and have no idea where to go, who to turn to and what to do at a time like this. So in terms of in your community now, what's some of the things or conversations or yarns or, you know, programs, what's happening?
I mean, look, everyone right now is in survival mode, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to figure out, you know, because, I mean, you know, natural way of things is going on. Things aren't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this is escalating quite quickly. So the best thing that I'm seeing in my community, and not just our Aboriginal community here in Newcastle, but also in our broader community, is that there's this element of human behaviour that we don't see, right? I'm on these, you know, little community groups on Facebook. There's been all these ones set up where people are just trying to care for one another. You know, they're trying to say, you know, any elders or any vulnerable people out there that need groceries, just let me know. I'll go pick them up for you. You know, just this humanality again that I find so enriching. You know, how do you care for one another when you wouldn't even give someone two looks beforehand?
Of course. And now...
So I'm really hoping that people are going to learn a lot through this period about what it means to be human again, you know?
Exactly, and just that whole kind of sense of community, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of moving forward, like what's some of the things that you're doing now maybe that you've had to do differently, or is business... It's not really... You know, a good thing to say is business as usual. It's not business as usual, but it is business as usual because we can't just kind of, you know, not keep going along as business as usual, right? We have to.
We got it. No one's going to pay our bills.
Exactly. So in terms of, I guess, business as usual, but what's some of the things you've had to do differently now in your business? And like you said at the start, you're only 7 months in.
Yeah, baby. I haven't even got teeth yet.
Oh, bless you.
Look, I've had to, we've had to go online. So we've had a lot of meetings, and I've got some facilitation soon coming up online. That's that's going to be interesting because, blackfellas first and foremost, when, you're delivering your training, or if I'm ever doing some strategic development conversations with businesses or training businesses, it's people. I don't like doing online or over the phone. I like sitting with someone so I can feel more so.
Yeah, and build those relationships, right?
That's right, yeah. So now I've got to move to online, which is going to be difficult. But, that's just the way that I'm going to have to do it. And I've had, Zoom meetings all week this week, just got off the Skype then. We have to keep chugging forward. But I think it's an absolute critical time for us to learn. I'm learning things about, even in my own strategy and the businesses that I'm working with, things that are arising that we go, you never would have thought about this before. So when this is all over, we were just talking about a program that I'm supporting in the Upper Hunter, and we're talking about our kids not being at school. So how can, sure that we might move to online learning, but do our kids have access to a laptop and a stable internet connection at home? You don't know.
Brother, that's exactly what's going on in our community here in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased that you brought that up because, we as Aboriginal people may be in business and we got families that we're part of and we're part of communities. And a lot of us do things after hours. Our jobs kind of don't even stop, and it's even hard to switch off. So in terms of in Brisbane, like I'm on the board of the Murray School and we've got 250 kids enrolled.
Yep.
And that's 250 families that we need to think about in terms of providing some kind of outreach service so that there is learning that's happening in the home. But hold a minute, they don't have the essential, tools, equipment, internet. There's that digital divide that we've been talking about for years now in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And we're not talking about regional and remote. We're talking about in urban Brisbane. So you're having the same, challenges down that way, eh?
Yeah. I mean, and I was thinking about, I was talking to my uncle last night, but we had a big conversation about that reciprocity piece, between how we conduct business. How do people buy business? How do they buy business from you and from me? What does reciprocity look like in a leadership context?
Yeah.
And we had a big yarn about that stuff, and then that got me thinking around, with our kids now, because last night, my auntie cooked up this chicken soup in a damper, and, we ended up there. It was my dad's birthday. He's passed now, bless him. And we just sat up there. My cousins were there, and it was just a mad little night just catching up and having yarns. But then we were thinking, like, if our kids are at home now and they've got, however long at home, if the nation does go into lockdown or whatever, this learning cycle of, if they haven't got access to the, education curriculum and those learning tools by internet, is there a paper-based one they could get? But then also kids are still going to be learning, right? If mum, dad, auntie, uncle sitting at home with them and we do go into lockdown and you're stuck in the house for a couple of weeks, they're going to be hearing the stories. So I think that the way we traditionally started to talk and to educate and to teach is going to also form part of this homeschooling, not in that education context, but the kids learning about who they are.
Yep.
Learning more about their Aboriginality, the stories that they don't often have time for because they're on their iPads or at school or mum and dad's at work or whatever. I think this will be a really interesting time, and I would encourage, families and, communities to really embrace this time if we are stuck at home, to share those stories they don't have time to share all the time. That's one thing I found with our family. We're trying to always find the time for us to talk about us.
Yeah, just to forget about the big wide world or the Western world that we're trying to navigate as blackfellas on the daily, right?
Yeah,
and come back to what's
most of this time now. Yeah,
and come back to what's important, which is our family. And
that's right.
Our families are for blackfellas. It's and I'm not saying that only blackfellas are very family orientated, but we're not individuals. In the Western world, it's a highly individualistic society, right, based on the individual and the nuclear family. Whereas in the blackfella world, we're part of a group. We find our individuality, but within a group.
Yeah.
You know, so to be able to kind of just sit back now in that Aboriginal world and people are coming back together again and you got time for people now and we're not stressed and hurried and rushed trying to find time for each other. I think that's been a positive for me as well, is that I travel weekly and sometimes I'm in 3 states in 1 week.
You do.
And my kids have got more time with me. I'm playing ping pong at home. I'm playing basketball. I went stand-up paddle boarding the other day. We were on bikes and done some bike riding. And my 9-year-old said to me, Mum, I have never seen you on a bike in my whole life.
Nah.
That's exactly what he said to me. And you know what? That's a moment where I just thought to myself, you know, if this COVID-19 didn't arise, then these moments wouldn't be happening right now with my own family.
Exactly right.
So
but how easy do you get distracted by what has to be done, especially in business, right?
Exactly. And to tell the kids that, hey, look, Mum needs to go and Mum needs to do work and Mum needs to make money, because if Mum doesn't make money, then we're not going to be able to live in this house. Not that we've got the flashes house, but I keep telling them that there's sacrifices that Mum's made so that you can have what you have.
And have the life that, you know, you might not have had when you was young.
That's just the bare essentials. Like you got the internet, you got an iPad, we got a car there. Like the little things that they take for granted, the football, the basketball fees and, you know, swimming classes, whatever it is, the extracurricular activities as well. They don't realise. They don't realise that not every kid, you know, when I grew up, we didn't really have all of that. I'm one of 8. Yeah. So to try and just keep food on the table in my own household, you know, I keep telling him at the moment, you know, that things are challenging. We're going to have a very tight budget and there's no eating out anymore, so we're probably going to save some money.
Yeah, good.
But even just getting in the kitchen again and start cooking. So I must say that I'm enjoying the quality time I'm having with my family and, you know, I know we'll get through this. Probably the most adaptable people on the planet, right? We've been through a lot.
Amen. Resilient. Yeah.
We've got it. It's within us. So in saying, I guess in closing, you know, because I know you got to get going, my brother, but is there anything at all that you want to say to anybody, especially for a lot of our, I guess, the corporate world and people in everyday businesses that are probably listening to this podcast? Is there anything that you want to end with?
Yeah, look, I guess for right now, you know, we're living through crazy times, you know, and it can be really hard to put that, you know, optimistic lens on a world that's in crisis, but we need to really sit back at some points, take a breath, you know, get our head up out of our devices and take a look around. We're learning things like, you know, Mara and I just spoke around what's she learning now about how quality the family time is without distraction of having to travel. You know, is that now going to inform how she plans out her year? Will she have 3 weeks travel, 1 week home, you know, to capitalise on these moments with family and with loved ones and how we think? My message to corporates and to big business at the moment, sure, things are going to be tricky, but I encourage you, I implore you to please continue to buy from Aboriginal businesses. We need to continue our work. It's so easy for our programs and our core being or our core reason of being to be pushed to the back burner, you know, as the additional strategies or the additional items that are non-essential and non-critical. You know, there's going to come a time where you do pick these up, but please don't let that time frame lag too much, because we need to survive and we're on a mission. So the more we do, the faster we do it, the better off the next generation is going to be for the work we've done, that they can pick up and take that up to level 2. And for small businesses, keep persevering. You know, there's a really good online collective now of the Aboriginal business sector trying to come together to problem solve and to unite in message and to voice concern. And I'm someone that's happy to have conversations with anyone. I'm no pro of business. I'm 7 months in. But I'm learning as I go. So I always love having yarns with people to figure out where they're at, problem solve, just offer some support sometimes. I'm not the best person to give advice, but, you know, happy to have any phone calls at any time with anyone. And my email address is Leroy, Leroy, @ Dhiira, which is DHIIRA.com.au if you want to reach out. or connect with me on socials.
Of course, because I definitely know, my brother, that regardless of you being in business for 7 months, you've got a lot there that you could share with our mob, especially starting off on their journey if they're new into business, or even around, looking for work, or what are the right service providers that we need to connect with. So don't undersell yourself, my brother.
That's true.
So, yeah, no, I'm listening to you there.
I'll take that on notice.
No, you do, because at the end of the day, I just think that the more people can hear about our different stories, our different journeys, our different experiences, our different skill sets, what we can offer to our community at a time like right now, right? I don't like to use the word crisis, but, it's a very tough time. It's a very challenging time, but it's also a time for us just to stop, take a break, smell the roses.
But there's always the good and the bad, right?
That's exactly it.
It's so hard to see because we're almost trained to only look at the bad, and we talked about last night, my uncle too. We're talking about what the underlying core reason of being was the black fellas in traditional times, right? With this linear structure, no hierarchical structure, and everything was designed around inclusion. I have a space and I have a place. Safety. I'm safe here with my people, and happiness. Mm-hmm. We didn't ever do more than we needed to do or take more than we needed to take. It was about survival for the generations, and it was about happiness. What are we?
I love it. I love it. And that just beautifully sums up our podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life, considering what's going on in your life. Oh, look, anytime. So, people, I guess one of the key takeaways that I've gotten out of this conversation here is that time with family is really important, and for you to catch up with that family over a deadly meal and to have a damper and just to talk about all the things that we don't schedule time for. So I just want to say, Leroy, it's been a pleasure to have you here on Black Magic Woman, and I hope that I get to talk to you again soon. So enjoy the rest of the afternoon and take care.
All right, sis.
No worries. Bye now.
See ya.
And that was Leroy Wilkinson, the founder and managing director of Dhiira, a deadly business in Newcastle, working with organisations around leadership, around employment strategies, Indigenous employment strategies, and much more. On my next episode, I'll be speaking to Sister Cherie Johnson, who's the managing director of Speaking in Colour. Cherie's a Walwan woman from northern New South Wales who resides in Newcastle and is a master weaver. She is a trained performer and also a qualified teacher that works in the Aboriginal education and arts space, but also around tourism and weaving. So that's going to be an interesting episode. That's all for now. Hope you can join me next time on Black Magic Woman.